What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast, my name is Kyle Dabra.
What's going on, everybody? The other half of the podcast, Kevin Valentin. Kyle, it's Thursday. Technically Friday, but it's Thursday for all intensive episode purposes. And the day we have been waiting for since February has arrived. Football is back, even if it is at a smaller capacity, but we'll get there, and we'll get there shortly. We have an agenda for you guys today. Kyle, what's going on today?
Yeah, it may be the Hall of Fame game, but it's nice to see football back once again. It's that time of the year, and I love it. But like Kevin said, we got this agenda for you guys, so we're gonna dive into some of these topics real quick. First things first, we'll go over the gold medal match in the Olympics. We're gonna focus on the U.S. men's basketball team going up against France in that gold medal match. This will be the second time that they squared off in the Olympics. France did defeat the United States the first time that they matched up just about a week ago. So it should be an interesting game to talk about. Kevin and I will discuss it at the top of the episode after we get through the agenda. After that, we're going to talk about the 4x100 relay team for the United States failing to qualify for the final in that event. And Carl Lewis, one of the most decorated U.S. men's track and field athletes that we've seen. He's a 9-time Olympic gold medalist. Did not hold back, and he criticized the U.S. men's relay team quite heavily on Twitter. So Kevin and I will do a quick discussion about that. And then after that, we're going to transition into something that we do not usually talk about, but we're going to talk a little bit about soccer. We're going to talk about Messi not coming back to Barcelona. Seems that there's been some sort of issue with Messi's salary and maybe certain cap restrictions that Barcelona has. And with those events taking place, it seems that Messi will not return to Barcelona. And the question that we will ask is, where's he going to go? There's been rumors that he might go to PSG, might go to England for Chelsea, Man City. We'll dive into that a little bit later. We'll also talk about the AFC West predictions for this season. Obviously, the Chiefs are at the top of the pecking list for the AFC West after putting a 14-2 record. But we'll dive into the AFC West at the end of the podcast. Kev, there was one more topic I wanted to hit. I'm just kind of drawing a blank. Do you remember what we were supposed to talk about? Oh, I remember the Lakers. The Lakers and kind of like this.
Lakers, a little bit of the Knicks.
Yeah, the team that they've kind of assembled through free agency the last week or so. They've added quite a lot of names in the first couple of days of free agency. So we'll definitely talk about that. And I know you definitely want to talk about Kemba going to the Knicks and what it's going to do and the impact that it'll have for the city. I imagine New York City is pretty excited for Cardiac Kemba coming back to Madison Square Garden playing for the Knicks.
To say the least, bro. To say the least.
I bet. So that's the agenda that we have for you guys today. So like I said at the top, we're going to dive into this gold medal match between the U.S. and France. This is going to be the second matchup where both the USA and France have squared off. France won the first matchup at the beginning of the Olympics about a week and a half ago. And they held the United States to 76 points offensively. So that was quite a defensive performance from France in the first matchup between them. So France is coming off of a very, very close win against Slovenia, thanks to Nicolas Batum. Nicolas Batum had a hell of a block at the end of the game that iced it for France, and they advanced to the gold medal match. They will go up against the United States. The United States is coming off of a win against Australia. They did struggle in the first half, but they rallied pretty tremendously in the second half of that game to advance to the gold medal match, which brings me to the question that I have for Kev. Kev, what is your expectation and what's your prediction for this gold medal matchup between the USA and France?
Well, I mean, like, first off, I know that I ripped into the men's team relatively quickly after they had fell, 2 out of their first 3 games at the beginning, whether those were preliminaries, exhibition games, it made no difference. In my opinion, the men's team is still the greatest team on the planet, obviously, even with the additions of Drew Holiday and Devin Booker and Chris Middleton joining the team. Even prior to that, we all know that roster was assimilated, even with some weak links or some unknown names that they should have dominated and never lost the game. But alas, here we are at the gold medal matchup anyway. So I definitely want to give a quick kudos for them turning it around and really showing that the world, showing the world that they still can be the most dominant basketball organization in the world. And then obviously, giving some respect and some kudos to France. I know that they haven't really been the butt or mediocre of people's jokes or the butt of people's jokes, whatever the saying is. It's still nice to see a different team that isn't Spain or Argentina go out there. And obviously, shout out to Slovenia and obviously the hometown boy, not hometown boy, but the hometown favorite for me, Luka Doncic playing for the bronze medal coming up in the next day or so. So, I mean, shout out to Luka for having 3 Olympic triple doubles, first time in Olympic history that's ever been done. And obviously, this gold medal matchup is going to be a good one. I don't want to say it's going to be one for the ages, but I mean, France ain't no bitch. You know what I'm saying? They're playing very tough. They're playing very gritty. Nicholas Batum looks like he's Portland Nicholas Batum with the great defensive efforts that he's been having. The New York Knicks' latest acquisition in Evan Fournier is just absolutely playing out of this world as of late with his offensive brilliance. He had 28 against, what was it? I think he had 28 against the U.S. He had 23 against Slovenia the other day or earlier today, whatever that was. Rudy Gobert's been playing good basketball and so on and so forth. So I definitely want to give the respect. France deserves to be there. But if I had to put a prediction, I got the USA winning by maybe 10, 15 points. I think they're going to take it personal. I think they're going to come up very aggressive. Kevin Durant has turned it around and showed that he is the leader of this team, as he should be, rightfully so. He's one of the oldest players on the team. He's been on 3 Olympic rosters, if I'm not mistaken, 2008, 12, and 16. So I think that he's finally taken that captain's role, that leadership position, and he's going to hone in and realize, hey, you guys really messed us up in the beginning, and you almost had us, worried if we even deserve to be here. And with the late additions of Drew Holiday being very, very crucial and pivotal to the U.S.'s performance as of late. Obviously, Drew has been great ever since coming over from Milwaukee after they had won their championship, and Devin Booker coming into the team as well. Zach LaVine's increased performance over the last week and a half. I think that they're poised for redemption, and I think that they're poised for a gold medal. I know that's literally contradicting everything I said 2 weeks ago, but I mean, they have shown me otherwise, and they've kind of shut up the doubters, myself included, to say that, they are ready to do this. They seem more motivated and committed than they did a week and a half ago. And I know that that's not really saying much, but I mean, it just goes to show when they want to turn it on, they can turn it on. And I just hate the fact that they think they can turn it off against certain opponents, because it goes to show against some teams that you should have beaten, when you slack, people are going to find ways to beat you. And if the U.S. would have kept that intensity, the entire level of the Olympics exhibitions included, I don't think we would have lost the game. So I got the U.S., like I said, winning by 10 or 15 points. I think it's going to be a big game behind Kevin Durant's 25 plus. And I'm hoping that Zach LaVine also has a 20 plus game. So let's go USA. Let's go get this gold. And I'm excited to actually see this game.
Yeah, I think the way that I see this game playing out is I think the United States is going to struggle at first, just because when I look at the last couple games that they've played in, and most recently against Australia, they've been getting out to slow starts. They were down at halftime against Australia just in the last game that they played. But really, in the second half, they have played outstanding basketball. Just to kind of give you some perspective on that, in the third quarter against Australia, they outscored them 32-10. The 32 points offensively is not the part that surprises me. It's the fact that they held Australia to 10 points in one quarter. So they played outstanding defense when it mattered the most to kind of not only regain the lead, but they extended their lead quite substantially. And they basically won the game by 20 points, winning by 97-78. So they won that game fairly convincingly, even though that it didn't have the greatest start. So I imagine that this matchup between themselves and France is going to be somewhat similar, just because I think France is going to come out either guns blazing offensively, or they're going to play really tight defense against the U.S. But I think the U.S. is going to make halftime adjustments. I think they'll be able to be pretty solid from the field. We've seen Kevin Durant really kind of step up from some of his inadequate performances earlier in the Olympics. He had a nice 23 piece against Australia just a couple days ago. We've also seen Devin Booker pop off now and then Drew Holiday. I know he's not one of like the NBA's greatest superstars when it comes to like LeBron James, Steph Curry, James Harden. I mean, you can name a laundry list of superstars in the league. But Drew Holiday is one of the best two-way players in the game. His impact is just amazing on the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, in that game against Australia, he almost had a triple double. He had like 18, 8, and 8. And for a guy coming off of a long season, a championship winning season for the Bucks, his impact has been huge for this team ever since his arrival in Tokyo. So I think he's also going to have a big game as well. So I think when I look at Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, I think Damian Lillard is going to have a bounce back game in this gold medal matchup. Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, and then maybe you get some key contributions off the bench from like, I don't know, Chris Middleton, Jeremy Grant, maybe Draymond defensively can step up for them a little bit. I think by and large, I think it's going to be just enough to get by France. I don't know if I'm going to say it's going to be a 10 to 15 point victory. I think France is going to keep it close, but I do expect the United States to win this by about 5 to 10 points. And yeah, I just kind of see them eking this game out at the end when it matters the most, and they should get the gold medal. They should. You know, I preface it by saying they should.
I find it just funny that, they're in this predicament and they're in this situation because they didn't play tough. And now they're at a point where they can claim gold against the team that beat them and knocked them off from their perfect performance, at least somewhat perfect performance this Olympic run in terms of matches that counted. And we all know Kevin Durant could be the king of sensitivity in the NBA, especially with, his alternate accounts and his Twitter pages being synonymous for, him getting hacked. And I don't know. I just feel I don't think that this team is going to let this slip away. This opportunity at a chance to show that France maybe got lucky or that it was a fluke. And I couldn't be more excited to see the revenge tour come to a close. And I know that it's not the revenge tour of 2008, but them getting the early skepticism that they did when the Olympics started, the doubts, the haters, people like myself that wanted to rip them a new one. Closing it out with a gold medal would be perfect. And I think that beating the team that beat you early on is definitely a good way to go about ending that rumors or drama.
I think the criticism was definitely warranted, though. They weren't playing well. They were playing down to their competition. I mean, losing to Nigeria, I mean, that's a bad look. I know it's exhibitions, but still, you should be able to wipe the floor against Nigeria. I mean, it's just, you're talking about freaking David versus Goliath here. I mean,
hey, David won that matchup in history, okay? So it's not unheard of.
I know. It's just still, but it's like literally like just like a minor league basketball team going up against like top of the line NBA players and then getting beat. So I do think that the criticism was warranted at first, and they finally turned it around. But I do have to ask you, just so I can have some fun with this. What if they lose? What if the U.S. loses to France in this gold medal matchup?
Ladies and gentlemen, be prepared for the chaos that's going to ensue from my mouth. Because
you say chaos.
Chaos. There's no way I'm letting you lose to France twice and not saying anything. There's no way I'm letting you lose the gold medal match and leaving you to no. Just Kyle, we're not going to get into it, guys. That's what I'm going to say. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to go off. There's no reason for me not to.
I imagine that's something that we could talk about next week if that actually ends up happening.
Exactly. So, we'll worry about it when we get there. But right this second, I am focused on them winning because they should, because they need to, because they should not lose. Like, it's not in their vocabulary. That should not be in unless you're saying we will not lose.
Depends on who's going to show up.
Nope. No excuses.
Who's going to make it? I do got a feel for Slovenia. They really did try to pull it together, and
it made a magical run, man. That was a run nobody in the world saw happening, and my boy single-handedly carried that to fruition. Although I'm not going to give him a pass for passing up on that last shot. I definitely have seen Luka take crazier shots. I've definitely seen him make more difficult, complicated shots. So I definitely think there's room to criticize there. I know that he thinks he made the right play with the open lane that I believe it Dragic or was it Dragic's brother? I don't remember who it was that he passed it to. They got blocked.
I don't remember, but all I remember was Nicholas Batum getting a pretty
Pinned
nice
it.
block.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
pinned it. No, it was a great defensive effort. Don't get me wrong. Definitely not going to take that away from Batum. But if I'm Luka, I'm taking that all day. I don't care who is around me. I don't care if I'm triple teamed. I'm literally one of the best players in the world, and I'm the best player on this team by far. I'm not taking this ball out of my hands.
I do gotta ask though, is it kind of odd or just kind of weird to see these guys really going above and beyond for their
No,
own national teams?
no, they're proud. They
Yeah,
should, bro. Are you kidding me?
like
These are the countries
I
they were
love it.
born in, man. Are
I
you
know.
kidding me?
It's just it's weird to see. I'm not saying their effort because I think the effort is there. It's
Yeah.
just the type of execution. I think there's a added level of urgency when it comes to these players playing for their national teams compared to when it's playing for the NBA. It's just I love it though because like you're playing for the pride for your country and like they're literally playing the best that they can. I mean, I didn't even know that Nicholas Batum could still get up like that anymore. The fact that he was able to pin that shot in the most critical moment of the game, you got to give a lot of kudos, for him making that play. But to be quite honest with you, in the NBA, I don't think you see that from Batum. I
No
just,
shot.
like, by and large, like Batum has been, I don't want to say irrelevant for the last couple of years in the NBA, but ever since he left Portland, he's
It's
kind
because
of
he
been
signed that contract with Charlotte, and we all know before anything like that
he
that Charlotte
he
team
had
was horrible.
he had a little bit of a resurgence with the Clippers this year, so it's
He showed he could still stroke it, and, you know what I'm saying, play good defense and come in clutch when you need to. But
mhm.
I think that layup attempt may have been a little soft. He kind of went up there a little, hesitant, almost kind of like, like prissy. You know what I'm saying? Just bro, if you gonna go up there, try to some separation, something. Don't just here, and then Nick Batum got like a 6'11" wingspan. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
I would
Or
hope
you
you'd block that shot.
or you can reverse it. You try to go for a reverse layup at the
I don't
last
think the
second.
angle. I don't think the angle would have. Um,
I don't think it would have worked.
no shot, especially with the time. Excuse me, guys. I'm yawning. It's like almost 12:30 over here. But yeah, no. Batum stepped it up and great defensive play.
Yeah.
But I think Lucas should have taken that shot hands down, no question. But
This,
we're not going to pin too much time on this. I know we have some other stuff to talk about
for
before
for
we end this.
for sure. So we're gonna keep it with the Olympics. We are going to transition to track and field, and we are going to talk about the U.S. men's relay team for the 4x100 meter race. So the USA did not qualify for the final in the 4x100 meter after placing sixth in their semifinal heat. And look, the USA men's relay team has been notoriously bad since 2000. 2000 was their last gold medal in that 4x100 relay. And ever since, they have really struggled as a team to be at the top of the list as far as like the best 4x100 relay teams in the world. So, Carl Lewis, who is one of the most decorated track and field athletes that the United States has ever seen, he's a 9-time Olympic gold medalist. And that doesn't even count the amount of world championship gold medals that he has or his overall Olympic medals that he has. I believe he has 10 Olympic medals altogether. He did not hold back criticism for the performance that the relay team had in Tokyo. So I have his tweet pulled up here, and the quote goes, the USA team did everything wrong in the men's relay. The passing system is wrong, athletes running the wrong legs, and it was clear that there was no leadership. It was a total embarrassment and completely unacceptable for a USA team to look worse than the AAU kids I saw. I don't know why that was such a struggle to read that quote. It was not that difficult.
It's
But
getting late. We're getting old. You know what I'm saying? It's okay.
but but he did not hold back in his criticism. Now, Kev, you did watch the relay before we started recording. What were some of the takeaways that you saw from just the 4x100 race where the USA did not qualify for the final?
I mean, I'm no track and field expert. I am definitely not the type of person to go out here and make critiques like on a sport that I would know in depth, like football or basketball. But for someone that doesn't watch track and field, And for someone that isn't aware of the technical skill that it would take to be successful at that, most people just think you need to be able to run fast, but I would assume there's a lot more technique and craft that you have to work on, like baton exchange. And it just seemed like the first exchange just could not have gone any worse other than dropping the actual baton. Um, it seemed like they could not get a grasp of it. I don't know if the guy that was passing it off, maybe he dropped it prior to passing, or the guy that was trying to grab it while running away couldn't get his hand on it. But it looked like that initial issue kind of led to the USA being in the predicament that they ended with, coming in sixth. And it kind of took them to that third leg to really push forward and really extend themselves past their limit from what it looked like, because obviously they were so far behind for the majority of the race. It was really up to that third individual to make that ground up. And then at that point, when you got to that fourth leg, obviously I would assume, again, I'm not familiar with track and field, the fourth one, the last leg, would be the fastest person. And it seemed like there was a little bit of misconception or, misalignment in baton passing again. And I agree with Carl to a certain extent. Again, I didn't watch the Olympics back then. Obviously, I wasn't even born. I don't watch track and field like that anyway. But the point of the matter is, it didn't look like they were ready for it. It didn't look like they were prepared, and it definitely did not look good for them. And then to lose to some of the countries that they did kind of just looked a little odd, considering that those countries were struggling as well in the beginning of the race. So, I mean, what are you really going to do if one of the most decorated Olympians is coming at you sideways? It's got to be for a good reason. And if Carl Lewis got something to say, then obviously that's granted. And from what I saw, he was right. It just didn't look good, and it's definitely not a good look for them going forward.
The way that I see it is that whole race for the US was lost in that first exchange.
Yep.
Because had they had a cleaner exchange in that first one, they would have probably finished top 3, top 4. I don't know if they would have finished at the top, but they would have at least qualified had they finished in third or fourth. And because of that bad exchange, you're talking about tenths of seconds that are going against you. And some of these races, especially when it comes to some of these qualifying matches, you're talking about hundredths of a second of a difference. And in this instance, that's where it cost the United States. And it's like you mentioned, the US was behind the entire race. They did start making up some ground in that third leg. And at the beginning of the fourth leg, it looked like they were really in it. But the anchor for the US just lost steam in that second part of his leg and ended up falling to sixth place. And it really kind of goes to show just the inadequacy of this team and the baton exchanges, which have been a notorious issue for the United States going on almost 2 decades at this point. Their last gold medal was back in 2000. I think that was the Athens Olympics, or it may have been the Sydney one. I forget. I think Athens was 2004. Sydney was 2000. So maybe 2000. But since then, they have struggled. And I think in large part, I think it goes to the fact that the 4 men that are participating in that relay, I don't know how long that they're actually training, like where all 4 of them are training from beginning to the end. Because when I look at some of these teams, when I look at, I'll take Jamaica for example. Johan Blake has been on that relay team for I think the last 3 Olympics, if I'm correct. It was like 2012, 2016, and then this one. So he's been one of the main constants. And the way that they train together as a group all the time. So when you watch Jamaica do these relay races, the baton exchange is never an issue because they have it down to a science. It's just basically second nature. With the United States, I don't believe that to be the case. It doesn't seem like these guys are in the right position to make the exchanges. And it seems like there's just something off. There's no rhythm in the exchange. I don't get me wrong. The United States definitely has speed, but I think what's detracting their speed when it comes to these results are the baton exchanges. And until they work that out, until they get really a cohesive group of 4 individuals that can have clean and crisp exchanges in the batons, the United States will continue to struggle in the 4x100 relay. It won't just be in this one, it will be in future Olympics. And until they get that addressed, you're going to see results like this. I thought it was wild that they couldn't even make the final. That's embarrassing. We've seen some moments here for the United States throughout the Olympics where you kind of shake your head just based that United States is usually at the top of the game when they come into the Olympics. Not in every single category or every single event, but still, by and large, the United States has a pretty strong grasp on most of the events that take place in the Olympics. But this 4x100 one, man, they struggled. And for what Carl Lewis said, I'm in 100% agreement with him. It was embarrassing. And it is completely unacceptable. So they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. They're going to have to figure some things out over the next couple of years. They've got 4 years to figure it out. Well, I take it back. They have 3 years since this one's taking place in 2021. But you're going to have to find some athletes, or you have to find some sprinters, that can train, that could just train better and make better exchange passes.
I mean, it goes to show perfecting your craft, working on your craft goes beyond your natural talent, because obviously when you think of track and field, you think of sprinting. You think of basketball, you think of making shots. You think of football, you think of either throwing the football or making a tackle. And it's like there's just so much more that goes into each of those respective sports. Like nobody really thinks about the actual skill of passing a baton or how difficult that can be, running at full speed, running away from your target, being at the end of your actual leg and like just having to pass that baton in a way in which your hands are not going to come into contact. You're not going to like lock fingers. You're not going to grab the end and your hand is sweaty and you're going to drop it. Like you have to get into a rhythm of doing that day in and day out, so you know how to do it perfectly when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, like I said, that goes for any sport, anything in life, man. You can't be the best at something and not be perfect at pretty much everything that you want to do in the sport. So the USA has definitely got to go back to the drawing board and really figure out, like, hey, we may have some speed on this side, like Kyle said. We may have some dogs out here, as PJ Tucker would say. But if you're not going to go and capitalize on everything you're supposed to do, which includes passing of the baton, probably shouldn't be there. And again, I don't watch the Olympics like that. I don't watch track and field like that. So I can't say what was on their mind or what happened, or if somebody stumbled at the end or just whatever. But when you think of Olympics, you think of the best in the world, and it just didn't look like they were the best in the world. They looked like they were sixth, or maybe even worse. So, yeah, I mean that's pretty much my final thoughts on that one, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an embarrassing result. I know that team has has some higher goals than that, and I know you didn't see the press conference, not the press conference, but the interview that they gave to NBC after, and they were pissed. They were not happy with that result. So you could just read it on their faces. They were pretty disappointed with the result that they had. But it is what it is. I'm like, they got to get better. They got to just have better technique if they want to be some sort of force to be reckoned with when it comes to the next Olympics in 2024.
Yeah, definitely got a lot to improve. But when you're talking about improvements, this one particular team in the NBA has drastically improved since our literal last episode in terms of personnel. The Los Angeles Lakers have what seems to be an assimilation of some great players over the history of the NBA in the last 10 to 15 years. And I say that because a lot of these players, like Kyle said last episode, if we would have been talking about this maybe 10 years ago, this would have been a goon squad of goon squads.
Mm-hmm.
And the Los Angeles Lakers, aside from Russell Westbrook, have added the likes of Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, Chris Dunn. No, not Chris Dunn. Oh my God, the lefty from Miami. Kendrick Nunn.
Mm-hmm. Kent Bazemore.
Camp Bazemore, and just a litany of other players, Wayne Ellington, and so on and so forth. It's funny because I called Kyle on the way back from my girlfriend's house today, and we were kind of talking about it, and Kyle was like a little bit more on the hype side till we talked about it in a little bit more detail, where Kyle said, damn, they really kind of have a super team. And I really kind of broke each individual player down, and we really like Kyle like kind of like sat back and evaluated like, damn, they're not much of a super team, but on paper, they're a
On
pretty good put
paper.
together team. Because when you really think about it personnel wise, like player by player, there's a reason why some of these players were not brought back aside from age. Um, I mean, obviously, the Lakers probably have the oldest team in the NBA, in my personal opinion, because you have Braun at 37 in December. You have Trevor Ariza at 36. Wayne Ellington's like 32, 33. Dwight Howard's like 33, 34. Um, who else? Of course, I'm thinking of just older players.
Westbrook's 32.
So, Anthony Davis is what, 28, 29?
He feels like 38 with all the injuries that he's had.
Yeah, but the point is the average age of the Lakers is in the upper 30s. And of course, you really look at it and you're like, oh, and they have Melo, of course. Melo's like also like
37.
38.
He's 37.
So it's like the point is here, the Lakers have a great paper team, but together how that's all going to work is going to be a little questionable. I do see what Jeannie Buss was doing with trying to bring a lot of shooters to LeBron, and we all know in history LeBron does very well when he's surrounded by shooters. But Kyle and I were talking about it, like I said, and when you really look at it in depth, defensively, the Lakers don't really have anybody of intimidation purposes, both in the front and back court, aside from maybe Trevor Ariza. And again, he's 36. I don't know how much of a threat he's going to be. But, I mean, Kyle, what what do you think the Lakers going to end up doing? Like, are they going to be able to make some noise in the Western Conference? Do you stand by your prediction of them having a good run at maybe being NBA champions once again?
Well, I think they definitely have the roster to kind of say that. But when I look at the roster, I mean, it
If they
is
don't
quite
get
old.
checked into a nursing home before then, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how it goes, it could go smoothly. All these guys step up and do what they need to do. But there's a very good chance that some of these guys are going to end up hurt simply just because age and attrition is starting to wear them down. And it's like you mentioned, Melo's 37. You got Russell Westbrook, he's 32. Anthony Davis, he may be 28 years old, but he has a significant injury history. So you really can't rely on his availability. LeBron James, he's 36. He's turning 37 in December. And he has a checkered injury history within the last 2 to 3 years. So when I look at this team, on paper, it screams, oh, this is a finals team. There's no doubt about it. But when you break down the team, player by player, age is obviously the main factor here. And I don't think people should just automatically assume that this team is just going to breeze through the finals. The West is still a very competitive conference. It's always been the more competitive conference. So the Lakers have a very good team, but so does Phoenix. Phoenix is coming off of a finals year. You got the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are getting Jamal Murray back. That 1-2 combo between Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic is going to be fire once again. You got
When
the
he gets
Clippers.
back.
Yeah, when he gets back. You got the Clippers to contend with. The Clippers still have Kawhi Leonard. They still have Paul George, even though that Kawhi is dealing with that partial ACL tear.
And he's a free agent. Don't forget.
He's going to resign with the Clippers. I don't see him going anywhere. He's going to stay with LA. And then you got Dallas to contend with. Dallas pushed the Clippers to a 7-game series. And I imagine that Dallas is going to be trying to make some sort of leap from where they were this past season. So when I look at this Western Conference landscape, I definitely think that the Lakers are still going to be in it. It's just whether or not they're going to be at the top at the end of the day. If they stay healthy, I think they got a very good shot to contend for the top 2 spots in the West. But if they're hurt, they're going to have to grind it out. And I'm just going to say it flat out. Do not expect this team to get to the finals. Just don't expect it. Because I think age is going to play a much more bigger factor than I think people are letting on. And I'm not going to reverse course at the end of the year by saying if they get to the finals, hypothetically, then that was a non-issue. No, it is an issue. And that's one that we're going to have to monitor throughout the entire season. But on paper, this does look like a championship contending team. I will say that, though.
I mean, again, Kyle and I did talk a little bit before the episode, and Kyle mentioned the intensity of depth that the Lakers really focalized in this offseason, and getting a lot of younger players and making sure that they had backups to those backups. And I know that in particular in these finals, these past finals, that the Bucks and Suns ran a very tight ship with 8-man rotations on both sides. And Kyle mentioned they might really do a 10 to 11-man rotation, because you do have a lot of older veterans on this team that are going to consistently need to be subbed in and out to make sure that they can last the length of the season. And there are even rumors that Andre Iguodala is deciding between the Golden State Warriors, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Los Angeles Lakers to sign within free agency. And I said it would be kind of funny that if Andre goes to Brooklyn just because he doesn't want to play with Braun, because he's already done the championships with the Warriors, and I could kind of see him teaming up with KD again to try to see if he can get something to spite Braun again. But what I was getting at was, I think the youngest player on this team might actually be like Malik Monk at like 24, 25, which is kind of crazy considering like that roster is basically like 45 plus.
It's Talon. Talon's 20.
Taylor Horton Tucker is 20 years old.
Yeah, he's 20.
Wow, and he just got a bag. Good for him. Not that he deserved the much money that he got after 1 year, but it's neither here nor there. The point of the matter is the Lakers have age. They have veteran leadership. They have some of the best players in the NBA. And if you depends who you ask, you probably have 3 of the top 25 players in the league right now. Depending on where you rank Russell, maybe top 20. And a lot of these players are kind of like isolation scorers. You got Carmelo Anthony out there. Kendrick Nunn is kind of streaky. Malik Monk is very streaky. Wayne Ellington's really only known for his 3-point shooting. Taylor Horton Tucker isn't really self-identified as of yet, at least in my opinion. And we all know what Braun and AD bring to the table. We all know Russell's going to be not only a facilitator, but someone that goes out there and gets boards, but at times makes in-time shot selection. And sometimes he gets a little ahead of himself, and sometimes he gets a little too egotistical, and that could put the Lakers in some trouble as well. Dwight Howard's not the player that he used to be. Marc Gasol's not the player that he used to be. So you just kind of have to look at it for what it is and hope that the team as a whole produce well and as a unit, because individually, I don't know how they're going to get it done. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Lakers, to be completely honest. I know that we have some other things to talk about, and it is getting a little later. Kyle, I know you had a question about the Knicks and what the impact of Kemba is going to do. I could have already phrased it without phrasing it, but
yeah,
what were you going to ask me?
Yeah, you got Kemba Walker going from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the New York Knicks in a sign and trade. And when you look at the Knicks roster as it's currently constructed, it's going to consist of Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and Julius Randle in your top 3 out of your starting 5. It's quite a trio that the Knicks have assembled just in the first couple of days of free agency. So, Kev, I just want to kind of get your sense on just the city of New York and the excitement that Kemba is going to bring to the Madison Square Garden this upcoming season.
I mean, well, first of all, let me just put it out there. And for those of you that are unaware, Kemba is a natural native New Yorker, born and raised in the Bronx, a hometown hero of sorts for a lot of friends of mine. I had some friends in high school who actually went to school with Kemba at Rice High School before it closed down. And shout out to my boy Kerry. But Kemba's been a hometown favorite since high school. And obviously when we heard he signed with UConn and, he had the whole Big 12 tournament game winner over Pitt while we were all in high school too. It was kind of crazy to watch him go through that and the success that he's had in his NBA career. And to know that, he's kind of representing everybody from home now on the hometown team. It's kind of cool. And, I know I don't know Kemba personally, but I feel like I do because he actually knows the struggle that we all had to go through growing up where we grew up. Kemba probably had it a little worse than others because in the particular area that he grew up, it wasn't exactly ideal. And he's kind of overcome everything that he's gone through in life between, home life struggles, height deficiency, like people didn't really expect him to do anything in the league because of how small he was, his lack of being able to defend. And he's been a prolific scorer. He's a 4 or 5-time All-Star in the NBA already. And now he's going to have a chance to compete for a championship more than he has in his entire career with the New York Knicks roster that's been assimilated around him, or assembled, whatever word I'm trying to think of. Guys, my brain is mush. Julius Randle also just signed a big extension, $114 million extension for over the next 4 years. Stay with the Knicks. RJ Barrett, another young piece. Derrick Rose re-signed, and a number of other players. So I mean, shout out to Leon Rose for going out there and making this move to bring Kemba home. It gives a consistent scorer on the floor at all times at the not only the guard position, but one of the most dire positions that the Knicks have needed for a while, which is a reliable point guard. And I know that Kemba Walker is going to bring some consistency to that offense. And the offense isn't going to have to vicariously live through Julius Randle bringing the ball up or Derrick Rose coming off the bench. So that's definitely going to help that offense kind of remain consistent. And I could not be happier. Again, I haven't been home in about 3 years, but my Twitter timeline, my Instagram timeline, and the people that I do follow on TikTok from New York have been popping off just to know that Kemba will be coming home to the New York Knicks is excitement in and of itself. Everybody's anticipating that jersey to sell out ridiculously quick, and I'm just over the moon because Kemba is my favorite player in the NBA, and I know that's kind of a random thing to say with me being a Mavericks fan, but again, hometown, just the guy that made it and did what he's had to do and overcome every obstacle he has. It's really nice to see him succeed. I was upset when he chose Boston over Dallas, and I knew that wasn't really going to pan out well with all the mouths that had to be fed over there. But hopefully he thrives in New York, and the city will kind of just feed off of that because when the Knicks win, like Kyle and I have talked about for so long, the city wins. But then when you got a homegrown guy on that team, leading that team, hopefully, it's going to bring another sense of just like all is right with the world. And I could not be happier for him.
Yeah, it's great for the city. It's like you said. I think that jersey is going to sell out within seconds. That is going to be one of the hottest items to come out of the NBA when they figure out what his number is going to be and when it's going to hit shelves. So I think it's definitely going to be quite a quick grab for anybody to try to get that jersey. No, I think Kemba is still one of the more exciting players in the league. Offensively, he can drop 25, 30 points very easily on a consistent basis. It's just the only thing that comes with Kemba is that he is a liability defensively. That's
Yeah.
really kind of been the one knock on his career is the fact that he's just not that good on the defensive side of the ball. But when you got a decent squad around you, they could try to cover up his shortcomings defensively to a certain extent, and hopefully they do. I will say this: I do remember I was kind of seeing some things on Twitter before Kemba did agreed to the sign and trade to go to the Knicks. I know there was a lot of people who are Knicks fans that were itching about the possibility of maybe Damian Lillard going to the Knicks. That was never going to happen. I remember Stephen A. Smith kind of devoted like a quick 30, 45 minutes, a 30 to 45 second segment where had Damian Lillard become available, that his first option would have been to go to New York. That was never going to happen. It is not
Not a
going to
shot.
happen. And I know Kemba Walker is not Damian Lillard. I'm not going to make the comparison between the two. But, like Kevin said, homegrown talent, literally from New York City, playing in basically one of the biggest venues that you could have in the
The
NBA.
Mecca.
I don't know how much better it can get. I don't see it.
It's
I
like where
think
Kemba became Kemba, or where he became known like publicly because of that step back. So it's going to be like he's literally not just coming home; he's coming back to the place that made him himself.
yep.
Dude,
I mean,
it's
honestly,
gonna be fire.
that's where he essentially got put on the map, like on a national scale. Because like the thing is, I remember Kemba when he was on UConn. I grew up in Connecticut, and I remember even before that step back cardiac game winner. Kemba was definitely a player
Stud,
on the
bro.
rise. But
Stud.
like the thing is, back when Kemba was on that UConn team, it was Jerome Dyson who was kind of like the main guy on that UConn squad. Kemba was that guy kind of waiting in the wings, kind of like getting ready for his moment to shine. And after Dyson graduated, Kemba was that guy that stepped up and took that team to a whole new level.
Yeah, you guys were like what, like 17th in the country that year, and then you went all the way to the national championship, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, they went like a 6th or a 7th seed all when they won that national championship. So
It was completely unprecedented. Nobody knew that was coming, and Kemba was a big part of that team. It was
Kemba
huge. It was
he,
crazy.
he was a huge part of that. So no, I think it's great for the city. New York City should be absolutely excited about the fact that Kemba's coming home, and it's gonna be must-watch basketball.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. Granted, I got a lot of Mavs games to watch, but man, when the Knicks are on, I'm gonna be excited to say, damn, like this is fun to watch. Last year was fun to watch them, but this year's gonna be great. I'm really excited for it.
Oh yeah. So we've got 2 topics left to hit. Could try to wrap these up fairly quickly. Um, I know we don't talk about this subject a lot, but the soccer world is pretty much on fire right now, simply because of Lionel Messi will leave Barcelona after a contract dispute between Messi's camp and Barcelona's camp. And granted, I don't know much about the system that they have set up over in European soccer when it comes to how much a team can spend and what the cap limits are. I don't know much about it. But what I do know is this is that Messi and Barcelona had verbally agreed to a 5-year contract extension just about a month ago. And then I believe La Liga changed their cap structure, and due to the restrictions that a team can spend on players based on the amount of revenue that the team brings in, Barcelona and Messi will no longer be able to agree to those terms and formalize that contract, which means that Barcelona is going to be left without Messi, and Messi has some options to choose from. So, Kev, just give me your impression on just what took place with Messi leaving Barcelona, and where do you think that Messi can go now that he's essentially a free agent?
Dude, it's really weird because as Kyle and I normally do, like I said, we were talking before the episode, and it just seems a little fishy. Because when you think of a major sports organization, a franchise, a team as big as Barcelona, you have to know financially where you stand, right? You would have to know what's up and coming with whether it's your cap, your league total spend amount, whatever it is. Like Kyle said, we're not familiar with the financial terms and how it works over there with restrictions and whatnot. But if you're coming to terms with your best player, probably the best player you've ever had in franchise history, one of the best players, if not the second best or first best, depending on who you ask, player in the entire world, how do you not know that this restructure or this reframe is coming? How do you not know that this is potentially looming in the future when you re-sign this player? Um, I don't know, man. I'm not really much of a conspiracy theory kind of person, but I feel like something's kind of going on behind the scenes that the media is unable to report about, or maybe they don't even know, because there's no shot Barca just like lets Messi go on a technicality, because that's just what this seems like. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't add an extra zero, they didn't cross their T's, they didn't dot their I's. But again, I'm no soccer expert. I kind of wish we had our boys, Garrett and Churchill here to kind of maybe explain it to us in a little bit of a better light. But the point of the matter is Messi is not going to be on Barca's roster for the coming future. I mean, who's to say they don't get a restructure done? Who's to say they don't get a new deal done? I mean, I know that one club team already reached out. I know Kyle got the same report. PSG, the club team in France that holds the contracts of Mbappe and Neymar, reached out to Messi's camp to see if he would be willing to, not willing, but willing, yeah, if he would be open to joining PSG alongside those two young legs, those two young stars with, well, you goodness gracious, if I could hit a reset button right now, I would, because I'm just running on like literal fumes. The point I'm trying to get at is PSG reached out to Messi. Messi's camp was listening, but PSG backed out of fear that they felt that maybe Barcelona wasn't out of the running and that Messi might end up just re-signing with them anyway. Like they were skeptical about offering him the money because they felt that maybe, the door wasn't completely shut on Barca. And I mean, I guess my counter question to you before I answer where I think he's going to go is, what do you think about PSG pulling their offer back? Does that seem kind of weird to you? That you're offering one of the best players in the entire globe a contract, and you're going to probably have one of the best sets of forwards in the entire world with, Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar. It just does it not seem weird to you that they pulled out with the fear of Barca kind of still being in the shadows?
Maybe it went back to this whole cap issue thing. I I particularly don't know much about how the cap system is structured over there. It's just, the idea of adding Messi to a lineup that includes Mbappe and Neymar. I mean, you want to talk about a three-headed monster lay that would essentially just lay waste to European soccer. Find me a better trio, because I probably couldn't find one.
That would be Messi's third trio because he had that one in Barca with Neymar and Suarez.
Yeah, so it would have been absolutely wild had that been the case. But the fact of the matter is that I still think that at the end of the day, the names that I keep hearing are PSG and then maybe Manchester City and Chelsea. I think out of those three, just based off of what I've seen off the reports, it seems like PSG is the most active. So that's definitely the team that I'm kind of expecting that's going to land Messi within the next couple days or weeks from now. So it would be kind of interesting to see Messi play in England and not in France, simply just because I think if you think the amount of shine that he got in Spain was one thing, I know this. He is going to be must watch in England. And whichever team that he could potentially end up in England, that fan base is going to go absolutely rabid if they can land Messi. It would be an earth shattering move, unlike anything that we've seen in recent memory in the world of soccer. Because when I look at Cristiano Ronaldo, Ronaldo looked like he was already on the way out for Real Madrid. Like it was already kind of set in stone. It was bound to happen. So when he goes to Juventus, I'm not going to say it was an earth shattering move that the way that it happened. This is a lot different because Messi's leaving on a technicality, like you mentioned earlier. So when I look at this situation, though, Barcelona botched this. I mean, how do you let this happen? And it kind of gets to the idea of whether or not they actually wanted to keep him. And for me personally, I don't believe that to be the case. I don't know much, and I don't have a lot of sources or a lot of reports to kind of go off on this, but this seems like kind of a weird way to let go of somebody. But I'm gonna be honest. I think behind the scenes, I don't think Messi and Barcelona's office or front office ever saw eye to eye. And maybe this is kind of like their way of making it look like it's this mutual split and they're gonna go their separate ways. I don't know that to be the case, but the way that I see it, I think by and large, I think there was a disagreement between both camps that wasn't reported. And I think this is their way of trying to making it look good to the public. That's how I kind of see it.
Like an amicable breakup for the world population. But again, it's like I said, it's that to me, it's too weird. It's too convenient. Like the way that it went down, and like the contract was agreed upon, and now the cap is changing or whatever that situation is, and now Messi's like, yeah, like Messi's not going to come back to Barca. It's just like, I don't know. I'm not saying I don't want to close the door on Barcelona and say that the opportunity or possibility of him going back is closed, but it is looking a little bit more likely that one of the greatest soccer players in this modern generation, and possibly in history, is basically a walking free agent, and he's just literally like listening to all calls at the time. Just I don't know. It's like a jealous girlfriend thing or a jealous ex. Like once he starts actually getting offers, will Barca make a counter offer? Will Barca just say, "Come home, like we're sorry"? Like who knows?
I think that bridge
So
is I think that bridge is burned at this point though. I,
We'll see what happens. PSG pulled out for a reason, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like that report of them pulling out for that reason just it leads me to believe he's still listening. The door is creaked. It's not shut. It's not locked. Maybe it's closed, but it's not locked. I don't know. Whatever
maybe
analogy you want to use.
maybe he's just kind of keeping the door open to just the offers across the board, whether it's from English
Yeah, but the
football.
report was specifically because PSG felt that a return to Barca was not like solidified as impossible.
Maybe
So, ESPN's not going to put something out there like that in terms of breaking news like 11 o'clock at night if it wasn't true.
no, but
So,
I think to how it happened, we don't really know.
of course not. No, we're never going to know. What we do know is we got one more AFC prediction to go and one more division to cover before we start over in the NFC, and that's going to be the AFC West. Guys, this might be quicker than the AFC East because, quite honestly, this division really isn't up for a debate, a question, a thought, a doubt, none of that. The Chiefs are going to win the division. The Chiefs might go 14 and 3, 15 and 2. The roster is still absolutely stacked. They've rebuilt that offensive line. Pretty much that entire roster is coming back from the Super Bowl that they had last season. And I mean, when you have Pat Mahomes, it's almost impossible to root against, other than in the Super Bowl, apparently. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs are winning this. Like I said, 15 and 2, 14 and 3. Obviously, the rest of the division contains the San Diego Chargers, excuse me, the LA Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and then the Denver Broncos. I mean, Kyle, normally I kind of lead this off. I just kind of had to clarify in case people were starting to think that other people in this division had a chance. What do you got the AFC West kind of finishing at?
I mean, the Chiefs are going to win the division. I mean, it's like you said, the Chiefs are going to go 14 and 3, 15 and 2. I mean, honestly, this team can go 16 and 1 if they really wanted to try. I mean, let's be real about it. You got Patrick Mahomes with one of the most dynamic offenses that we've seen in recent memory, and a defense that is opportunistic when they have a lead. They always kind of find ways to make the plays that matter the most. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be far and away one of the top teams, not only in this division, not only in the AFC, but in the entire NFL. So they pretty much have a stranglehold at that number one spot in the division. After that, it's pretty much a place for second. Like you're pretty much running for second place at this point. I'll say this. I do think that Justin Herbert is going to have a solid sophomore campaign, had a solid rookie season last year. I do believe that he will be able to continue that success that they had last year. The Chargers went 7-9 with Herbert leading the quarterback spot. So, not 500, but not too far away from it. So, I think that they will learn from some of the mistakes that they made last year. And I think Herbert is going to be solid. I don't know if I'm going to say like top of the AFC. I think that's too far to say. But I think he's going to be a solid quarterback for the Chargers next year. So I would say the Chargers are going to be in second place. I don't have a lot of faith in the Raiders. They're just one of those teams that is just They don't really do anything to excite me. That defense is atrocious. So I don't really expect a lot of changes as far as them giving up points. I mean, Kev, they gave up almost 500 points as a team last year defensively. That's atrocious. I mean, they were second place in the division and still gave up almost 500 points on defense. So if they have any shot of being somewhat of a competitive team going into this season, they have to improve the defensive side of things because it's just not going to get it done. And Derek Carr, is he going to do anything that much to really kind of excite me in a way that's like, oh, the Raiders actually have a shot to make moves in the AFC this year? No, not really. I think at most they could have an outside shot to make the wild card, but they would have to overtake the Chargers, and I just don't really see that. I think the Chargers are going to be a better team than the Raiders this year. And the Broncos, they got Drew Lock at quarterback, but I don't know. I just don't see it this year with the Broncos. I think Patrick Mahomes has more wins in Denver than Drew Lock has. And Drew Lock's been the starting quarterback. Like, come on. Like, It's just
That's like a sad statistic. It's wild.
it's but it is what it is. It's just it kind of goes to show just the Broncos are just they don't really do that much. I mean, you know, I think I could see them maybe finishing like 6-11. I'm being nice. 6-11, maybe 5-12. But that's it. Like Chiefs at number 1, I got the Chargers at number 2, the Raiders at number 3, and I got the Broncos finishing out at 4. But I mean, nobody's gonna tell me different. The Chiefs are gonna be, you know, the top contending AFC team this year. So, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. They got to the Super Bowl last year. They did get spanked by the Bucks in the Super Bowl. But I think this team, has realistic expectations to get back to the Super Bowl. And I think with the roster they have assembled, they could definitely make that happen. I mean, to go to 3 straight Super Bowls, that would be something.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, it's the literal exact same for me. There's not really much of a debate and an argument in terms of how the division's going to go. Like I said, guys, this is literally like one of the easiest ones because it's like
Yeah,
there's so many other divisions that have at least a competitive duo, at least for the division. This is so far and away from that. It's like
it's not even
one
close.
A and 3B. It's like it's so difficult. I mean, I agree with Kyle in terms of second place being the Chargers. I think Herbert takes a very big sophomore jump. Um, a full offseason that he's had, obviously. There's some video surfacing of practice of him making some incredible throws. Granted, there's not really a live defense kind of rushing at him, but still, the arm strength to have to make the throws that he has been wow. Like the kid's got talent. I'm going to be bold and I'm going to probably say that the Chiefs go, like I said, 15-2 or 14-3. I would probably say that the Chargers maybe go 11-6 just because I feel like Herbert's going to have that big of a year. If I had to put my finger on it, I think the Raiders go 8-9 or 9-8 at best. Like kind of flirting with that 500 level, depending on how good of a week Derek Carr can have and how much that defense would need to improve on a week-to-week basis. And then, of course, rounding it out, yeah, I got Denver as well, probably 5-12, maybe even 4-13. Um, that quarterback room has always been a
Revolving door.
of sorts since John Elway became the GM. Obviously, outside of Peyton Manning, he's kind of literally been bringing QBs in on a week in week out basis from what it looks like, obviously, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get it together. Now, granted, Cortland Sutton comes back on that field after tearing his ACL, unfortunately, last offseason or last preseason. So, I mean, another weapon will be added to the offense, but nevertheless, like I said, I don't really see them going anywhere in terms of making any decent run at anything in the AFC, let alone in the division. And that's why the AFC West, in my opinion, is the easiest division to kind of predict because the North had obviously the hardest division in football. You had the East, who's up and coming with the Patriots' resurgence and free agency. You have obviously the South with the Colts and the Titans, and the up and coming Jaguars within the next 2 to 3 years will probably be competing as well. And then dumpster fire the Texans. So I mean, like the AFC as a whole is very strong, and it always has been. But in this division, it's like not even close. It's so clear and cutthroat and like concise. Like it's the Chiefs and nobody else. That's it.
It's honestly like the AFC East when Tom Brady pretty much had that AFC East division locked up. I mean, it's basically kind of like the same thing. It's just
Yeah,
pretty much,
Mahomes got his struggles locked on there for the next 10 to 15 years, and I feel bad for anybody else that's in the division.
yeah, there's just not much hope as far as those 3 other teams go. But Justin Herbert will definitely have something to say about it this year, though. But I do think that the Chiefs are by and large head and shoulders above everybody else in that division. But
Big time.
I think it's time, you guys. I think it's time we wrap this up. I want to take the time to appreciate the support wherever we can get it, whether it's listening us to the streaming platforms that we have or watching us on YouTube. We definitely appreciate it. This will be uploaded first thing in the morning, so definitely expect some new content to drop on Friday. Kev, do you want anything else to say before we wrap this up?
Hey man, like Kyle said, shout out to everybody and all the support. We're at 210 subs right now, which is great. Obviously, our goal is to hit 300 by October, so we're about 90 away from there. I know that we had a good way to end July with the wrap up of subs that we had within a 2 to 3 week span, and it was great. Um, we are still working on the TikTok concept. Kyle and I are still thinking about it, going back and forth. So when we
That
know, you guys will know.
that may be something that we start working on when the NFL season starts.
That's going to
I,
be great.
I think that's something that we'll be able to work in once the NFL season starts.
So you heard it here first. Mr. Editor in Chief right here has just given us a deadline. We got about 3 weeks before the NFL season starts. Hall of Fame game was today. Preseason officially will go into kick this weekend. So we're looking forward to it. We're excited as football fanatics and pro football lovers. This is going to be a great season, and we can't wait.
Yes, sir. But with that said, you guys, thank you guys for tuning in and listening or watching to the episode, and we will see you guys next week.